I'm focused on this theory cause it keeps me from this fire. The Holy Ghost was with me, so my fear I leave behind. My sins were all diminished when he took that breath and died. And if you think I'ma give up on my God, the devil is a lie. The devil is a lie. The devil is a lie.
Hello, hello. This is Christina Barton. You're watching Black T News. Hello, hello. Welcome to Black T News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we are going to be talking about some interviews that Kamala Harris had last night. Some interesting things that came out because of it. With NBC, I think this interview is going to hurt her. The Fox one hurt her for sure, but this one I think is going to hurt her too. And she made some interesting remarks. As she tried to distance herself from the transgender movement, which is not going to work for many reasons. Also, something that she said about Christians and abortion that makes her a threat to everyone that is pretty pressing. I think it's pretty pressing. So, she cannot win, guys. It doesn't look like she is going to win. It looks like she's not going to be able to pull that out. And Trump, from what we can tell, is ahead. The early voting numbers look good for Republicans, look good for Trump. And we don't know what's going to happen election night. I saw some people who were concerned because the city of Detroit was going to put on like a block party for like voting and stuff in areas where people could go and vote. And so, to encourage more people to go. Now, it doesn't say that's one party over the other, but a lot of Democrats obviously vote in Detroit, but it's like, okay, but that would also be a good opportunity for people to go and, convince people to not vote for Harris, but they're really going to try to drive out turnout. But it looks like they're behind as far as early voting, or they're not keeping up with Republicans. And then they have strong uncommitted people, and Kamala Harris is not a unifier between some important demographics of voters. So she's just really, really bad. With all the stuff being thrown at Donald Trump, you would think that he would just have no opportunity to really win. But Kamala Harris is a very bad candidate. And not only is she a very bad candidate, people wanted change. And so even though she's a different face, she's still part of the administration. So she's like the worst mix of things. And it's just not going good for the Democrats. But I'm going to ream into her pretty hard today. So also there's a new hit piece that the Democrats have launched against Trump. The Atlantic came out with another news piece. I'm just going to kind of briefly talk about it. I'm probably going into more of it tomorrow. But it's their October surprise. So expect people to be talking about it. So I'm going to encourage you guys to be informed about it, because I'm sure it'll be a conversation, just like Losers and Suckers was a conversation. This one's going to be a conversation. But I think people are pretty sick of Kamala and Biden and how the state of the world is, and they just want someone to fix the crap, and they think that Trump is obviously going to do a better job. So I don't know if these hit pieces are going to really have any impact, especially not the impact that Trump's hit pieces on Kamala Harris that are legitimate. Those are really hurting Kamala Harris, and I can show you guys how. So anyway, before I jump into everything, I first want to say thank you to those of you who shared my new video that I dropped yesterday about the 50 reasons not to vote for Kamala Harris. If you haven't watched it, I encourage you strongly to go watch it for yourself, and I encourage you to share it. And I really want people to share it around. On Facebook, people were sharing it. On YouTube, I saw people commenting and saying that they were sharing it. Know some people were sending in group chats and emails. Some people didn't take up. I was like, if you don't have social media, just go ahead and email. Someone was like, I am emailing it. So I thank you guys. I did finally get it on TikTok. I had to upload it like 5 times because I originally uploaded it and it looked like it had kind of stopped. And so I took it. Well, actually, it also my wording or whatever was kind of off kilter when I posted it. So I took it down and re-uploaded it, and then it didn't look like it was really doing anything, and it was like stuck and it wouldn't play. The video wouldn't play. And then I re-uploaded it, and then that had a hard time playing. But then they just muted it, and it didn't give me a good reason why they muted it. And so finally, after several tries, I just did like a green screen and had the video like above my head and watched my own video. So people got to see the whole thing that way, and it hasn't, got flags or anything. So people started sharing it and liking it from there, but TikTok is suppressing that video. So if you're on that platform, I encourage you to still go ahead and like it and share it and repost it. And my offer is still out there for people who have, platforms where they think it might do better with attraction. And if you want to repost it on there, that's fine. I just ask that you leave my watermarks and, draw back to my website, because I did work really hard on it. And if, people would like to come back and see what I'm about and, hit the subscribe and like and, notification bells, I would appreciate that opportunity. So please go ahead and leave me with the credit. But I just really want this woman to not win at this point. So please go ahead and share that video. So thank you guys. I'm glad that you enjoyed it. And some of you are like, man, this was a lot of clips. This is a lot of work that went into it. Yeah, it was a lot of work. But, fortunately, um, I knew where a lot of stuff was because we talk about this stuff all the time. And it wasn't hard to make that list of 50 reasons. Funny thing, before I get started on the commentary of the day, I had posted on YouTube in the community that I was going to, that I had posted my video, and someone in the comments was like, oh, uh, I have a list of Donald Trump 50 reasons because he's worse. And someone was like, well, go ahead and list them. And so then they started trying to list stuff, but they only got to 12, and the list was really bad. I'm trying to pull it up really quick because it was so stupid, and it's so typical. So that's the thing I know about these Democrats, who hate Trump. Not that, like, if I did a 50 reasons for Donald Trump, like not to vote for Donald Trump, I could come up with a list. I could come up with answers that that I found to be substantive or whatever. But some of the reasons that I'm mad at him, they're not going to be mad about those things. But most of the things that they're mad about are like imaginary. So my answers for Kamala Harris, my reasons are substantive. They're not he said she said. They're things that she said. They're laws that she supported. Bills that she tried to pass. People she prosecuted. All sorts of different things. But they're substantive and things to be angry about. And most of it is in her words. So I don't think the left could really come up with something as good as what I did. So they said Trump only thinks he's smart was number one. Yeah, so that's an opinion. Okay, you think he's dumb. You can sometimes his way of speaking is very elementary, elementary, and sometimes I'm like, why did you say that? He has a filter that is very thin. But he does some very clever things when he's in his wheelhouse. So, it depends what you mean, but he's a pretty smart guy. Someone once said to me, like, what do you feel about Trump's mental decline? Because that's the whole like Democrat talking point right now. Well, they're trying to push, and I'm like, oh, well, he's smart. He's still smarter than Kamala Harris. So if we had to choose, I trust his mental capacity more than hers right now. So anyway, number one for them was he only thinks he's smart. Trump is a sleazy businessman. So this just insult, insult, no specifics. Trump is a failure at business. That's a subjective opinion. You're not going to convince people that he's a failure at business because he had like 6 bankruptcies and like 600 subsidiaries of different stuff, and people go around and see Trump Tower and his name on all this stuff. Yeah, he's had some casinos or whatever that went under, but you know he seems to be okay. I watched Apprentice for years. You're not going to convince me that he's like a terrible businessman. Trump doesn't care about the Constitution, much less understand it. I wouldn't say that he doesn't care about it. He probably has he probably has more than an average understanding of it, probably more than this person. Trump lies constantly. I could point out some lies, but again, not specific. You know, uh, Trump has the emotional maturity of a middle school kid. That again, an opinion, insult. Trump is losing it mentally. Listen to him from the 80s and 90s compared to now 40 minutes of music at a rally. Uh, People get older, they're not as sharp as they used to be, or maybe they're tired. They don't like talking. But if you listen to him on these podcasts and stuff, like he's not losing it. Like he went on Flagrant. Some people think him going on Flagrant won him the election. We'll see. But even after their thing, they're trying to push it. He's like lost it. That's just not the case. Trump has not lost it. You know. Um in the 40 minutes at the rally thing, there was a medical emergency, so they shut it down, for a little while. And he gave them the option, and everybody wanted to stay and listen to music with him, and they just hung out and had fun. So them really trying to push that he's losing his mind because he listened to music with his supporters is silly. Number 8, they wrote Trump found guilty of racist practices in New York long ago. He was sued, but he didn't admit fault, and it was settled. So you know that's more like a he said she said situation. Trump was found guilty of sexual assault. No, he wasn't. Um, he said he only fights the defamation charges. If he was found guilty of sexual assault, why is he walking around? Um, Number 10, Trump failed at dealing with COVID, regardless of how you feel about COVID-19. He certainly didn't do everything that I would have liked him to have done, I thought, I agreed with the Great Barrington Declaration, so I didn't like all the country being shut down and stuff, and I think he gave too much power to Fauci, but um, they probably think that stuff is fine. So um, that's an opinion. I wouldn't say he failed. I would have definitely done things differently, though, especially his reaction to some of the Republicans who decided to stay open. I particularly didn't like. Number 10, Trump failed at dealing. Oh, I already read that. I'm sorry. It jumps to it says 19, and then there's like a blank space, and it says, "Is he so he messed up? I don't know what that's about. Is he the person you want your son to emulate? Is he the one you want your daughter to date? I don't know how that would be a reason not to vote for him. There's plenty of politicians I wouldn't want my children to be like, you know, especially if they're not living upright, righteous sort of lives. So that one's weird. You know, Number 11, I mean, there's aspects about people you can pick out, but like that's a silly one, really silly one. I would be embarrassed to make this list. But it goes to number 11. I don't know why that one was randomly there with number 19, because he didn't even go up to 19. Number 11, he's the only 2 presidents to lose jobs while in office. I find that one to be very disingenuous because of COVID. So every time Democrats mention, oh, well, Trump lost jobs during COVID, it makes me think, oh, well, did you guys prolong COVID and push COVID so we would have to shut down so you could have this talking point? And I'm sure that's probably true. So every time a Democrat mentions that, it just makes me resentful. So I wouldn't I'm sure that if they made a video that would make the list, but this list is really stupid. And the last one was he increased the deficit close to double Biden even without COVID spending. And I don't know, uh, double without Biden. I don't think that's true. Maybe he did spend a lot though, and he spent it could I mean Biden spent a lot of money with the bills that he passed. Inflation reduction. So I he did spend a lot of money. So if I was actually making a list, I would mention that he spent a lot of money. I would. That's probably the only like substantive thing on here. So that was his list, and so I replied and I said this list is pretty whack, and you should go look at mine. And I have all these substantive reasons to not vote for Kamala Harris. And you have, insults, personal insults, you have accusations, you have, feelings and emotions and etc. I have her on camera saying her policies. So anyway, the left can't make it one like how I'm making. Uh yeah, my sister said a lot of emotions. Yeah, Craig said I had receipts. Uh anyway, uh Star said, "We love you. So glad you're with us now." What does that mean? I would assume oh, that was someone. I voted for Trump on Friday. I'm in Louisiana. Mindy already voted. I see you guys in the chat. Thank you guys for being in the chat, talking with a lot of comments on Facebook. If you can't see on YouTube, where's my YouTubers at? I see Katrina, but anyway, thank you guys for sharing the video. And go ahead and also check out my site. Make sure that you guys sign up for emails and you look up different merch and so on. If you guys want to support my work, you guys can do that at the website. I know some of you who are watching right now have supported, so I thank you very much. I thank you so much. Or you guys can send super chats or super thanks. I know someone sent like a thanks in the video. I just appreciate you guys. I just really do appreciate you guys. And also someone shade in the comments said they voted. Go. I think I might I think I can still vote early. I think I'm gonna go ahead and maybe do that because I don't think I want to wait till the day. So I might arrange that for myself and do it early. So I'm gonna be pretty candid today with you guys about some feelings and stuff that I've had throughout this election and where I feel that I am right now. And if you've been following me for a while, the past 2 years I've had plenty of negative things to say about Trump and his stance with the pro-life movement and where he shifted blame about election losses and how they changed the platform, Republican platform, and other things that he said and positions that he's still pushing, and JD Vance flipping on positions himself, and Republicans flipping on positions, and people now saying it's a states' rights issue when 5 minutes ago we were like, we need the 14th Amendment to recognize the preborn, which would, ban abortion nationally. So there's a lot of shifting that I don't like, that I'm uncomfortable with. But I do deeply and sincerely mean what I'm about to say to you all. Kamala Harris is evil. And she's an evil woman. And I pray for her salvation. But as of today, she's an evil woman advocating for some very evil things. I think Trump, is too advocates for some things that I would consider to be wicked as well. But this is pretty evil, okay? And it's super concerning. And it's stupid on top of everything else. It's so politically stupid. When people do things that are just so radically stupid, it should deeply concern you about how radically stupid they are. Okay? It should radically concern you about how stupid they are. I'm going to play you a clip later of, but in this interview that she had on NBC, she was asked a question about her support for the trans community, and she kind of dodges the question a little bit. She doesn't, before they're like, oh, we love you, we support you, we see you, we affirm you, all this stuff with the LGBT community. And now it's just like, everyone should have rights and we will follow the law. And that's where she's going now, because those ads that Donald Trump put out about her wanting transgender surgeries for prisoners and putting it on during football, you know, I was talking to my sister earlier, she said whoever thought of that in the campaign is genius. And yeah, that was a good move. That was a really solid move. And it's obviously effective. And we can, not just because Charlemagne and other people are talking about it, but because Kamala Harris is now altering her position and her speech around this issue. So she sees she's in some trouble with average people about these crazy positions that she took. So she started trying to shuffle and, dance around that, even though their staple has been, we love and appreciate, we're for the LGBT, we light up the White House in pride colors, we have pride parade stuff, with the White House, people showing off their fake breast, at these events, which they did condemn, to be fair. But like, oh, we'll go on, like, Democrats will go on the drag race and do all this stuff. They'll have Dylan Mulvaney go with the president and do an interview, all this garbage, all this stuff. And now it's like, now she's, pussyfooting around it because it's not good for the polls. But she has enough sense to do that. It's a little too late because you're on camera saying some pretty crazy stuff. It's a little too late. Okay? But she had enough sense to do that. But she didn't have enough sense to not say this. Okay?
Hypotheticals. What concessions would be on the table? Religious exemptions, for example? Is that something that you would consider?
I don't think we should be making concessions when we're talking about a fundamental freedom to make decisions about your own body.
To Republicans like, for example, Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, who would back something like this on a Democratic agenda if, in fact, Republicans control Congress, would you offer them an olive branch? Or is that off the table? Is that not an option for you?
I'm not going to engage in hypotheticals.
What?
Okay, first of all, you need to engage in hypotheticals because your career path into the presidency is just a hypothetical right now. And we don't know what's going to happen. We can gauge your past performances or whatever. Imagine you were going into a job interview and they ask you a hypothetical question about how you're going to perform your job. And you say to the person who you want to hire you, and granted, this is a journalist, but she's supposed to be representing and speaking on behalf of what Americans want to hear. And then you tell the person you want to get hired by the boss or whoever's interviewing you, and you tell them, I'm not going to engage in hypotheticals. We kind of need to know. It's really stupid. But let's back up on the stupid for a second. So to break this down a little bit more, Kamala Harris was asked about compromises in passing Roe v. Wade because she wants to codify it. And let's be frank, she doesn't have the numbers. As Trump said during the debate, I think it was the debate where he said she doesn't have the numbers. Why doesn't she be honest? She doesn't have the numbers. And I think it was at the debate because he mentioned that he wouldn't have the numbers to pass a ban. He wouldn't have the numbers and she wouldn't have the numbers. And some people on TikTok and other places are kind of wise to that fact. Like, abortion really isn't on the ballot federally in this election like people are trying to make it seem. Because he's not going to be able to do anything and she's not going to be able to do anything. And a lot of things that people want to do, they're going to have to make changes to the Constitution or do a bunch of crap that maybe they won't be able to pull off. So it's just rhetoric. Donald Trump is trying to make it a non-issue. She's trying to say they're going to ban it everywhere. I just saw a video with like a man on the street video, and someone said that Donald Trump wants to give the death sentence to women or something, or arrest them or whatever. And that's certainly not his position, and that's not the pro-life position in general. Trump did say something like that in 2015 maybe, and not about the death penalty, but like arresting women, and that is like the abolitionist position though, that if you kill a child, whoever kills a child should face penalties for it. And to be frank, I just you have to kind of tell me why you don't think that makes sense. I know why people say that doesn't the mother's also the victim, and they've heard so much jargon and propaganda throughout their life, and so the abortion doctors and other folks too. So I don't think that quite makes a lot of sense, but we can have that conversation another day. um but the whole thing is that that's not Trump's position, but that's what they're saying. Like, well, that's what Project 2025 is saying. Like, I'm pretty sure Project 2025, I haven't read the 900 pages, to be frank. I've only read like one chapter of it. But if I had to guess, I don't think it probably talks about executing women who have abortions. It's probably not quite that bold. Okay. So, but then they didn't want to Google it and stuff. And then they asked the person, like, well, when was the last time you were laid? And just so they were an unserious person, but that people say the craziest kind of jargon about this stuff. But Kamala Harris, Tim Walz, they push Project 2025. They do all this fear mongering, and people believe things about Trump that's not true, and even about Project 2025 that's not true. But anyway, they're not going to be able to get a lot. If Trump wanted to do a national ban, he's not going to be able to do it, and she's not going to be able to get Roe v. Wade passed unless she can have some bipartisan crossover. And there are pro-choice Republicans. There's Republicans really squishy on the issue, and Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins, they might want to cross over and in the debate, if they can, if she's willing to make some concessions on some stuff. So that's what the question was. And the concession that she threw out there was religious exemptions for Christians. Now, I wouldn't have thought to ask that question. I don't know if I was like in that interview, because it just seems like something that should just be on the table, and something that's a discussion we shouldn't really need to have. And her answer is, well, I don't think we should make concessions about a fundamental right. It's very funny that Kamala Harris thinks that a woman being able to kill her child is a fundamental right. But me deciding that I want no part of it isn't a fundamental right. And it's actually an infringement if I don't want to support her. Do you know what that sounds like? It sounds like you kind of just declared war on me. That's what it sounds like. What? So when I first heard, I'm like, what does that even mean? What does she think she's even saying in that reply? Now I can gather, I can hypothesize for you. Let me lay it out. First of all, Kamala Harris, she's for no limitations, no gestational limits or whatever. And she's against the Hyde Amendment. First of all, the Hyde Amendment stops federal dollars from being able to pay for abortions. I think except like maybe they might make exception for rape or something, but you can't use federal dollars for abortions. Now they do fund organizations that do abortions, and they get it, still money from the actual payments of the abortions, and donors and other stuff like that. We certainly don't need to fund these places. So it still feels like we're funding abortion one way or another. But she's against the Hyde Amendment. And Joe Biden used to be against the Hyde Amendment. And in 2020, he said he was against the Hyde Amendment. And then, I don't know, people who were too chronically online on the left started wailing and gnashing their teeth. And then he even like defended his position. But then all of a sudden he flipped and was like, okay, never mind. I'm not for it anymore. And just abandoned his long held opinion, informed by his faith and all this stuff. And all of a sudden he was for the Hyde Amendment so he could compete with Bernie freaking Sanders. So anyway, Kamala Harris is against the Hyde Amendment. So there's that. So she is absolutely for your taxpayer dollars funding abortion. It's funny how it's my body, my choice, but it's not my money, my business. And they keep trying to involve everyone else in their evil wickedness. So if it really is between a woman and her doctor, then pay out of pocket for that crap. Pay out of pocket for that. But they don't want that to be the case. And in some cases, that probably wouldn't even help anyway, because some places they pay for the bodies. There's this young man who, total heartbreaking story about his girlfriend who aborted his child. He named her Clementine, and he went to a panel for Students for Life, and he said, "I wonder if she was beautiful." He's like, "I want to know if she was beautiful." And he says he doesn't blame the mother, but he said that the abortion doctors paid for the abortion, and it was a later term abortion. I don't know how late it was, but they wanted the body, so she didn't have to pay a dime. So he doesn't, I guess he wouldn't have a body to bury anyway, or body that he can see, but he doesn't know what they did with his child. Like, that's the reality of this. Only God knows, and them, what they did with her corpse. So they want us to pay for it, bottom line. It doesn't stop there. It doesn't stop there. Remember Hobby Lobby? Hobby Lobby is a huge arts and crafts store. I've only been there a few times. There's not one super close to me, but got a lot of stuff. Equivalent would be like Michael's, but it probably has more stuff than Michael's. But it's a big craft store, and it's owned by Christians. And when Obamacare happened, they wanted insurance company, the businesses in their insurance plans to cover different birth control stuff, but they wanted some stuff that was abortifacient in there, meaning it would stop an implant an egg that has been fertilized from implanting. And so they didn't want to do that. And so they decided that they would go to court. They would risk everything, including their business, losing their business, in order to stand up against Obama, because they wanted that exemption for their religious liberty and stuff. So they ended up winning that case, but they should not have had to fight for it the way that they were going to fight for it. And they said that they were willing to pay for birth control, but they just didn't want to pay for something that would take a life. Now, I don't really think companies, if they don't really want to do that, then I guess they, even the birth control, I don't think it really should, if they don't feel that it's ethical for them to do that. And then came the case for the Little Sisters of the Poor, because they wanted exemption for paying for birth control, because it's a Catholic organization. And so they could kind of get an exemption, I think, but then they needed to, but they still had to, and their employees or whatever would still be able to get birth control, but they'd have to fill something else out for their employee to get it somewhere else. And they're like, no, we still can't do that, because we'd still be helping them do something that we see as being unethical. I'm like, well, that makes sense. But they had to go to court. And so, Obama and them went after the nuns, Little Sisters of the Poor. So there have been cases against, different Christian organizations to come up against their strongly held religious views. So, with Kamala Harris saying she wants to codify Roe and rejecting the idea that there should be religious exemptions, does that mean we're going to see more cases in the future, like Hobby Lobby, where they want people to pay for, abortion pills, period? Not just maybe stuff that could cause that's birth control, that could possibly stop implantation of a fertilized egg, but would they say, hey, you have to actually pay for these abortion pills? And I'll go further than that. In California, these pro-abortion groups like the Planned Parenthood affiliates or whatever, their groups coordinating with or pressuring California, their government, to stop these exemptions from going on, because there's religious organizations that are like, we don't want to pay for abortion stuff, and they'll get exemptions. Like, no, don't put exemptions for these people. So there's religious organizations, not just stores that happen to be run by Christians. I'm talking about religious organizations that don't want to pay for abortions. I've had to sue California because they don't want to be forced to pay for someone's abortion. So is that where we're just headed? More cases like that? Why is it that she thought abortion was a fundamental right, but your right to practice your religion, to live by your religious convictions, is not? Why isn't she hardwired to see that? Why isn't she hardwired to protect people's First Amendment rights? You're talking about you can't tell a woman what to do with their own body? Then why are you telling me I have to participate in this? You are violating my will. You are violating my bodily autonomy, my conscience. So if we're at this point, I see this as war. I see this as war. So when I said let me read this to you guys. Let me read this to you guys, because I thought about, because I started working on an article about Kamala Harris and some of her positions, because she says, well, you can still support a woman's right to choose. Well, she says you don't have to abandon your strongly held beliefs or your, religious convictions or whatever to believe the government shouldn't tell a woman what to do with her own body. And that line is so stupid, because the government tells a woman what she could do with her own body all the time. Earlier this year, I was driving, and I had my phone. I wasn't doing stuff on it. I just was holding my phone. Cop saw me, pulled me over, gave me a ticket. And that's it. That's the law. You can't hold your phone. Don't tell me you can't tell women what to do with their own body. Now you could say, well, that's because you were operating the car. Yeah, there's certain rules that people have to adhere to when they live in a society. I can accept that. But don't tell me the only time it doesn't apply is when there's a baby's life on the line. That doesn't make any sense. This is an ethic people express, yet no one believes. And it's the main talking point for this idiot who's the vice president of the United States of America. No one believes that. Nobody. But I thought of this speech that was given by Frederick Douglass. I mention it quite a bit, but it's the "What to the Slave is the 4th of July" speech that he gave on actually July the 5th, because he didn't actually want to crap on the 4th of July, but he wanted to challenge the Republicans and everybody to really stand up for their convictions, especially Christians. He laid into Christians for being too passive, which, by the way, abolitionists did that, in Britain and stuff too. But there was a point in this speech where he talks about the fugitive slave law and how he said it should have been seen as a declaration of war against religious liberty, because it implies that church regards religion simply as a form of worship, an empty ceremony, and not a vital principle requiring active benevolence, justice, love, and goodwill towards man. It esteems sacrifice above mercy, psalm singing above right doing, solemn meetings above practical righteousness. So I thought of this speech mainly because of the we should be seeing that as a declaration of war. This is a declaration of war that she's saying right here. And people like, oh, well, you can still go to church, but like with the Hobby Lobby stuff, or Jack Phillips with his cake business, and or other Christians who've been persecuted because they didn't want to bake a cake or didn't want to do a flower arrangement or whatever, or make a website for a gay wedding, etc., etc. They'll say, well, no one's saying you can't go to church, but when you open a business, that you still have to, you have to kind of like leave that aside. And that's not how it works. That's not how it works. If you're a Christian, you don't clock in and clock out on Sundays and Wednesdays and Fridays. That's when we have service and stuff, and we have revivals and stuff. I'm in church all the time. But it's not just a clock in, clock out stuff. That's how you live. My life belongs to the Lord. I'm a living sacrifice. That is my good and reasonable service. So people just expecting me to take a few hours out of my day, and that's the only place where I can exercise my beliefs, that's insane. That's insane. Everyone else lives by their beliefs and secular beliefs. When people go around saying, well, it's not really a baby, that is a belief, man. Well, I just believe that the mother has more rights than the child is more important. Okay, well, that's a belief. It still doesn't explain why you get to kill somebody. All kinds of people have beliefs. Well, I don't believe it's really human until consciousness, or people will say stuff like that. It's like, okay, well, that's a belief. And it's also not a fact. Not a fact. It's the opposite of a fact. It's just wrong. I believe no one should have to work minimum wage. That's a belief. I can understand why you have that belief, but it's a belief. Everybody deserves a living wage. Even people who don't really work for it. Kind of lazy. That's a belief. I can understand why you make that argument, but it's still a belief. We live and we negotiate our beliefs all the time, and we pass policies because we can persuade each other and have conversations. Whether you are driven by, maybe you're a Christian driven by those philosophies, maybe you want illegals to flood into the country and all of our taxpayer dollars to pay for their health care, give them EBT cards because you see that as being charitable. It's not. Being charitable is you reaching into your own pocket and paying for people, taking care of people. And you really should go to the highways and byways and preach the gospel, try to improve other people's countries where they're at instead of trying to import the whole entire world to the United States of America. That's what you should be doing. But I can understand your confusion and we could debate it. But a lot of people are driven by their beliefs to get where they want as far as policy. The Christians are the only ones that are supposed to leave that at the door. And we're only supposed to leave that at the door when it's something that's contrast to what the liberals want. Because Kamala Harris went to a church on Sunday. Nobody on the left was like, oh, this is Christian nationalism. Nobody said that. She found herself a place with a not great preacher, a serial adulterer who has said some many off things, but he's a pro-choice man because God gives free will. God also gives free will to rape. That doesn't mean that should be legal. So it's a dumb argument. People make it though. So she went there, a place where she thought she could be safe and maybe get some street cred. Say that she went to a church on Sunday. If anybody who's really paying attention ought to know that her street cred should have went down going in that particular church. By the way, the person who interrupted and got kicked out of that church, I don't think is a member. I think I recognize her, and I think it was a pro-life activist, and she might have been an atheist. I don't know. I've seen her do stuff with, I'm pretty sure she really looks like this woman who does stuff with secular pro-life a lot. And secular pro-life is an atheist group. So I reached out to them and said, is that your friend? I'm not 100% sure, But I think she probably found out where Kamala Harris is going to be, went to the church and decided to. She was saying, "What about the babies? What about the babies?" Because today was the first time I saw a close up of the woman and actually could really hear what she was saying. All the other videos I saw, people were just escorting a white woman out. But I'm like, I think I recognize her. So taking like a I think she's an atheist. I'm not 100% sure, but it took like an atheist to go into a church to rebuke the Christians. It's just sad. A little sad. A little sad. Now, Donald Trump's positions, I don't want to rehash them all. If you've been listening to me long enough, well, maybe I need to talk about. I mean, ever since the midterms, he decided to direct the lost blames on the pro-life movement. You know, he didn't want to direct it towards some pics that he made that were not great. He didn't want to direct it toward maybe some stuff that he and other people had said about the election being a factor. It was the pro-life community being too harsh on some stuff, even though some of his people that he picked had the positions that he thought were too harsh. But that was his decision to make them the target. And then when he was running against Ron DeSantis, he said 6-week bills are terrible, heartbeat bills are horrible. He thought it was, and so people are using his words in Florida right now to try to defeat, well, I guess to pass the pro-choice stuff that's on the ballot. And I don't appreciate that. The comments he's made about Arizona and other places, I haven't appreciated it. I was so angry when I saw that there were mailers circulating around saying Donald Trump, common sense abortion policies. And then one came to my door and I was so upset. I was so upset. To be very candid with you, I was really struggling with even checking the box for him, and contemplated very seriously and decided like at one point where I didn't want to fill in the ballot for him. And I just kind of want to leave the top blank. But all the time, every day, it seemed like something would happen with Biden or Kamala Harris at, where I'm like, gosh, but they're so awful. They're so awful. And I'm in a swing state. Some people are like, I'm not going to do anything because it's not going to matter in my state. If you're in California or something, but I'm in a swing state. So my vote is pretty important. So, and at the same time, I'm like, they changed the platform. They treated the pro-life people in the Republican Party terribly. I'm not going to go into the whole thing, but I did write about it at the time, and I did talk about it at the time. I don't want to rehash it all today or whatever, because I don't really plan to make it too negative about Trump right now. I'm just rehashing some feelings. And I didn't know how invested kind of I was until maybe the debate, because I'm like, I was so triggered by how bad he did. I was so triggered because at first I was kind of like, well, whatever happens, happens. But I was so upset by, not just because he was doing poorly and lost the debate, in my opinion, but also because he didn't hold her accountable in the way that someone ought to have held her accountable. It was very clear that I wanted her to lose. So I would still talk about how bad she is. I'm like, she can't win. She can't win. She can't win. Because I want her at the very least to not win. But this is just, there's so many things that was like a bridge too far with her. I'm like, she definitely just cannot win. And there's two options on the ballot. And she's declared war in so many different fronts, in so many different ways. I think it's too dangerous to reward her behavior. I've been talking about that lately, about how they replaced Joe Biden, that we cannot allow that to be how we select presidents. People think they go through a whole process, whole primary, you have a presidential debate, and then you can get replaced because you lost the debate. at the last second. So all the money you geared up, all the planning, the talking points, all that stuff that you had for that opponent, now all of a sudden there's a shift and everybody's just supposed to swallow and take it. We can't reward that behavior. The way that the media treats Trump versus Kamala Harris, and they always treated him bad, don't get me wrong, but the way they covered up Joe Biden, they covered it up. They covered up his mental decay. We all saw it with our eyes. We all saw it. And then when he didn't do too hot in the debate, then they started asking questions and they started leaking stuff and they forced this man out. They forced this old man out, and he's still the president of the United States. There was some kind of statement from some person in his administration that was saying that people kind of ignore him now. He's the president of the United States, and you guys are just ignoring and don't care what he does? Who's actually running the country? Because it sure ain't Joe Biden. All of this is so concerning. So he's still the president. Kamala Harris is running. And it's, oh, she's so great. Oh, she's so joyous. When 2 seconds ago, you all hated her guts. She needed like 3, 4, 5 reboots. There's stories about staff being overturned at the White House, how she seems kind of difficult. I know they set her up with the Bordazar thing. That totally seemed like a setup from the get-go. I'm like, they must hate her guts. They must hate her guts. And now they're just like, oh, Kamala, she's so brat. That's so cool and hip. Fact-checking Trump at the debate, refusing to fact-check Kamala Harris. Fact-checking, or not fact-checking, but adding their editorial notes or whatever during JD's debate. And I'm so glad he called them out. And then after he called them out, they're like, oh, did you see how he called them out? Because he didn't want to be fact-checked. He didn't want the American people to be lied to and have to do a 3 versus 1 debate when he's there to talk to Tim Walz. They were more adversarial than Tim Walz was, I think. The way the media acts, they cannot be rewarded for their behavior. They can't. They can't. These journalists, the justice system, everybody calling Trump a felon when they know that Bragg case was garbage. That was the weakest, dumbest thing among all the things they came after Trump with. And it's the only thing that he's been convicted on that will probably be overturned. That should be overturned. And people are still calling him a felon with their full chest. And pretending like he's not being politically prosecuted. Someone put it really great. Let me see if I can find the tweet. Maybe I retweeted it. But no one oh, here it is. He said literally Jesse Siegel, let me share my page real quick. I hope you guys don't mind me being candid. And I would say all the time Harris is worse, but I still had such strong feelings, and I'm disappointed with Trump with a lot of stuff. I got to say, I am, and I still am. And I pray that, I don't know, we maybe we can have a conversation in person one day, or other people can have conversations. And I know people who behind the scenes have had, they think that, you know, he'll have a change of heart on some stuff. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. But Jesse Siegel said it wasn't a political witch hunt. The thing with Donald Trump is that he commits a lot of crimes. Then when those crimes get investigated, he claims it's a witch hunt, and his credulous fans believe him. It's very sad. And then Wilford Riley said, literally no one but Donald Trump would have been charged with 34 state level felonies for 1 federal misdemeanor. And we know that the former attorney general of the state, who's also the former governor, said that they just went after him because it was Trump. And that's why they got away with it, because it was Trump. And you can say, well, no one should be above the law. Yeah, but we shouldn't twist the law to go after our political opponents because we don't like them. People shouldn't be rewarded for this. And I'm not saying that Trump has been a saint and that I've liked all his behavior or that even necessarily he should be rewarded, but they're still worse. 100%. 100%. 100%. And someone said, how many other presidents or presidential candidates did what he did and were found guilty? And I said, what? And I asked, what was he found guilty of? How did he commit a felony? Because people don't know. People, it's the dumbest thing. Democrats, go watch the video. I played the video at the time. During the Democrat convention, they described Trump's arrest or what he was convicted of him trying to hide information from the American people. That's what they think he should go to jail for, to prison for. Do you know how stupid that is? But because he didn't use campaign funds to pay for a porn star? Do you know how stupid that is? They can't be rewarded for this bad behavior. Them defying the Supreme Court with the student loans, all that stuff. The lies that they tell. The lies that they tell. I've never seen a campaign like this. I've seen lies. Like Harry Reid lied about, he just made up Romney not paying taxes. That was a lie. And when he was confronted about it later, he's like, I don't care. He lost. Disgusting. We see people lie on campaigns, sure, but the amount of lying from the Harris campaign is insane. And the Biden campaign was bad too. But I mean, the Harris HQ is just the Biden HQ. It's just switched over. But the things they lie about, the Charlottesville lie, that was so damaging, not only to Trump, but the country. The lies they tell, the Project 2025 lies, shame on you if you're dumb enough to believe it. Shame on you if you're dumb enough to believe it. But how dare they tell these lies? How dare they tell these lies? All the time, nonstop. The lies about Amber Thurman, we've been talking about it for a while. And the lies that they've been telling, and I've covered it. But when I saw that video that she put together at that rally, and she started talking about women who can't get care from miscarriage, which that's propaganda. But then they started playing Amber Thurman's video when she didn't have a miscarriage. She went out of state so she could have an abortion to kill her twins. Her son's siblings. And she got sepsis from the pill, not from the pill, but after results of the pill, which is something that can happen. But they want these pills to be at every freaking drugstore possible. So easy, without obstruction, in every state. That's what they want. An abortion ban, a national abortion ban would have saved her life and the life of her twins. And she's going around using this mother's death so they can kill more babies. That take me off so bad. That take me off so bad. This behavior cannot be rewarded. It can't. You can say January 6th all you want. I didn't like that day. I didn't like the riot. I thought it was stupid. I don't just mean in general. It was stupid. I thought it was stupid for Trump to have a rally that day. I thought it was stupid for people to go down there. If you were one of the people, I'm sorry. I know I have friends who went down there. Actually, I know some people who went in the Capitol. I know some people who just went to the rally. But to me, I'm like, that seems like a setup. I didn't know it was Trump's rally at first. I thought it was just supporters going. I'm like, he's having a rally? That doesn't sound like a great idea. And what happened? It didn't seem like a great idea. Not a great plan. Not a great plan. I would have liked for him to handle his disagreements about how the election was handled differently. I don't like when he has an axe to grind with good Republicans, but they just don't toe the line, and then he needs to do his best to get rid of them. I don't like that. But what can I say? Kamala is worse. Kamala is worse. She is. She is. So it's not just that she's worse and so immoral. Plus, her policies are bad. There's policies that Trump has that I'm not crazy about, and I question like, how will we pay for that? And I'm like, there's lots of like, there's no touching really of entitlements. There's a lot of folks he's saying he doesn't want to be taxed on, which is always great. But I'm kind of like, okay, you don't want to tax tips, but does it seem like, why tax income? But I know like we'd have to structure a lot of different things differently. You know, there's things I'm not fond of. And I do not think that he's gonna stop the bleeding on the border very quickly. Very quickly. I don't know what kind of long-term benefits they can have if they don't pass some legislation. And then even if they pass the laws, people have to actually enforce them. So if people don't want to enforce the laws, because we have laws on the books, obviously, we're gonna be back at this place sometime later with some kind of radical Democrat. Hopefully, he doesn't push for any kind of amnesty. He floated it at one point when during his first term, but that got squashed. But hopefully, that's not their agenda ever, and they just do deportations. I don't think they're going to remove 12 million people. That doesn't seem like something they're really. They say mass deportation. You shouldn't give your hopes up that everybody's going to be gone. But they will stop the bleeding, and they will handle it better. And we had lower border crossings while he was in office. Those are just the facts. And I absolutely believe he wants to build that wall. And Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, they're suing states that wanted to take matters into their own hands and try to protect their border. They're like, no, you can't have that barbed wire up and fencing up. And I'm like, they're trying to protect their people and you're fighting them. And Kamala Harris and them, they push stupid hoaxes like the migrant whipping hoax. There was a story about someone who had died, and they tried to blame it on some kind of, I think, border that was put up by Texas, but that wasn't true. But that floated around too for a while. Not as big as like some other hoaxes that they've pushed, but again, this behavior can't be rewarded. And I'm not looking forward to when Trump winning and the media being all crazy and going through the repeat of the stupid stuff they talk about every day, like having stupid scandals like Trump fed the koi fish wrong, or Trump walked in front of Queen Elizabeth, or, Trump likes ketchup on his steak. Is Trump afraid of stairs? These are real things I'm talking about. You know, the ketchup on the steak, he really does like ketchup on steak, but there wasn't like a big like controversy. Oh my gosh. Do you guys remember when they ran a story about how Trump gave 1 scoop to people while he got 2 scoops of ice cream? That was a real thing. They reported on during the Trump administration. So we'll have dumb stories like that, and people being really critical of Trump again, and we'll be back in the circus, I'm sure. And all of a sudden the fact checkers they'll dust off their jacket and their equipment, and they'll finally get back to writing and finally get back to doing their job, because they've been real lax over the past couple of years. They could do a random act of journalism, as Rush Limbaugh used to say, but for the most part, they haven't treated Trump like they treated Biden. They haven't. So we have talked a full hour about this. Oh boy. Oh boy. So anyway, what can I say? I was fired up. I was fired up. Um, just scrolling through your comments really quick. You guys are chatting it up today. I see in the comments, but anyway, they cannot be rewarded for this. They cannot be rewarded for this. Let me at least find another clip to go through about this Kamala thing. Um, yeah, but if you're a Christian out there and you are a fence sitter, you know, and you're like, I don't know if I can vote for either. You know, I can't say that I don't respect that view. I can certainly sympathize and understand it. Um, but I do have to sincerely tell you that Kamala Harris is 100% worse. You know, she's 100% worse. And it's not just that too. They've the sort of prosecution that they willed power to go after their political opponents. And it's not just Trump that's saying that. You know, there's people who have been prosecuted and are going to spend years in prison for violating the FACE Act, or people that they really tried to go send to prison, but the charges were so stupid. But you know, they'll send them to jail for 3, 4, 5 years, while they were bailing out rioters. You know, so um back in 2020. So um I'm sorry, there seems to be something going on. My phone just kept buzzing and I didn't know why. And I had a sister who called, who usually just calls when she needs me, but she probably didn't know I was live. Okay, I apologize about that. Let me play this real quick. About she was asked if Liz Cheney was going to be in the cabinet.
You've spent a lot of time on the campaign trail with former Congresswoman Liz Cheney, as you referenced. Is she somebody who you would consider putting in the cabinet? Have you talked with her about this topic? I'll keep you posted.
She will keep you posted about Liz Cheney being in her cabinet. Now, Kamala Harris has already said that she will have Republicans in her cabinet. Who do you think she's talking about? Maybe she's talking about Kinzinger. Maybe she's talking about Kinzinger. But if she's talking about Liz Cheney, you know, people are concerned about like the Muslim committed vote, and putting the Cheneys in her cabinet. Even just saying, you know, I'll keep you posted, instead of saying no. What people will join on to a campaign and help campaign and stuff, and sometimes they're just doing it because they really you know, want to help out the campaign and think that somebody's so bad or whatever. But sometimes a lot of people want something. Maybe Dick Cheney wants something. Maybe he wants his daughter to be the Secretary of Defense or something like that. So if you're a Muslim and you're on the fence, and you're like, yeah, but Cheney bombed a lot of Muslims, man, in the Middle East. I just don't think that's gonna make people happy. I think she's gonna keep having her issues, man. So anyway, I'll keep you posted. But let me show you guys the one when she was talking about the transgender Americans. Now, this one was puzzling. I already mentioned this, you know, already. So I'll go ahead and play it, and then we'll add our commentary.
On the question of your beliefs, what you believe in, let me ask you this question, very broadly speaking here.
Sure.
Do you believe that transgender Americans should have access to gender-affirming care in this country?
I believe we should follow the law. I mean, I think you're probably pointing to the fact that Donald Trump's campaign has spent tens of millions of dollars.
They're trying to define you on this.
Yes,
I'm asking you to define yourself, though. Just broadly speaking, what is your value? Do you believe they should have that access?
I believe that people, as the law states, even on this issue about federal law. That is a decision that doctors will make in terms of what is medically necessary. I'm not going to put myself in the position of a doctor, but let's also understand that Donald Trump is running tens of millions of dollars in ads to talk about 2 cases, to distract from the fact that his policy and plan is also to take away the Affordable Care Act, which provides health care for tens of millions of people in our country. That his plan is to undo the $35 a month cap on insulin that impacts millions of seniors in our country. That his plan is to do away with the $2,000 cap on prescription medication, the annual cap.
That's a decent pivot right there. By the way, there was information. I have to look more into it because I just kind of saw a little headline about it, but I think the cap that they did caused some premiums to go up. So, for other stuff. So, I'll have to get back with you on that, but not a bad pivot. But the reason why Donald Trump was spending so much money in those ads is because, well, it probably when CNN decided to air that information about her ACLU questionnaire about how detained illegal aliens, she supported them getting, sex changes or whatever with our tax dollars. For people really resent that because there's so many things that their family needs or our country needs. They know our deficit is crazy. We're in debt. Don't know how to exactly fix that right now. Or does it look like it's going to be fixed anytime soon? And you see all these people flooding in, they get all these privileges, and we're just kind of like, why are they getting so much money while we're struggling? And and people feel that way about so many just like basic things that they're giving illegals. So if they're upset about that stuff, imagine how they feel about, you want to pay for gender transition surgeries and or hormones or whatever of illegal detainees with our taxpayer dollars? You support that? And how woke do you have to be to put that in the questionnaire? And she didn't just answer, she like wrote a statement or whatever. So she wanted to be thorough. I'll give her that. And so that was pretty incredible when that report came out, and Trump mentioned it at the debate. And people thought it was so ludicrous that they thought he was lying. So they probably thought, gee, if they think this is so ludicrous that I'm lying, then they just think this is ludicrous and they need to know this woman is ludicrous. So they started making ads and they started airing them during football. And people like Charlemagne saw it. And then he went on his show saying that was an effective ad, because I'm like, I don't want to pay for that. And Charlemagne, he's ride or die with these darn Democrats. He'll complain about him, but he'll still, vote for him despite Joe Biden saying you ain't black if you don't vote for me. So if he can say that, then surely other people who are not so caught up in their ideology will say, man, this woman who I don't know very well and don't trust, this is her record. These are her words. Things that she said while she was trying to run for president, and now she's running for president again. This is crazy. So they took Charlemagne talking about it, and then they cut a new ad. So yeah, they spent a lot of money on it. And we watched the one with Charlemagne together, and I pointed out how many black people were in it. I'm like, this ad is for particularly black men. That's why they made this one. That's why it's cut the way that it is. So yeah, she's answering these questions this way and complaining about the ads. Like, get over it, man. Because it's effective. And that's why she's dodging with this question a bit. So let's keep listening.
That his plan is to get rid of the Department of Education, which would mean getting rid of Head Start. That his plan is to give tax cuts to billionaires and big corporations and on the backs of middle-class working people. So let's not get distracted by the issues that, to your point from the introductory point you raised, people want to know that their president has a plan to make their life better. And that includes bringing down the cost of living. It includes dealing with prescription medication costs. It includes addressing the housing crisis and affordable housing crisis in our country. It includes supporting our small businesses, investing in American industries, and strengthening our economy.
So that was a decent pivot there, but she is just doing this follow the law, and Trump is trying to define you on this, and he's successfully doing it. But there was another clip where she's like, it seemed like you didn't answer the question. And Kamala had said, I want, because you could see her answers about this are very far removed from. It looks like I don't have that clip saved. Let me see. I'll just explain it. I had saw it originally on TikTok. She was like, she said that you're pretty far removed from the kind of conversations that you were having before, about we're with you, et cetera, et cetera. And that's true, because she's trying to dodge a little bit. And by the way, it wasn't just a trans illegal alien thing. She also, there's a clip, and I put in my 50 Reasons video, of her talking about, making sure transgender people had care and the inmates had the care for those transition stuff. And then she also said that she advocated to have a policy changed. So when she says, I'm going to follow the law, okay, first of all, she's going to follow the laws that she likes. She's going to follow the law that she likes. Like when the Supreme Court struck down the student loan thing, they didn't say, oh, we lost. Okay. They kept fighting because and then they brag about defying it. Like when the Supreme Court said we couldn't do this, we kept doing it or whatever. Okay, but that's wrong. Supreme Court, interprets the law, and you guys are the executive branch. You're supposed to execute the law, and kind of, just bragging about how you don't care about it. It's just bad look, right? So they follow the laws that they want to follow, but she's going to have a legislative agenda. She's going to sign bills into law. And so to just say, we're going to follow the law, we're going to follow the law. Yeah, you're going to follow the laws that you like and the ones that you make. So it's very relevant what you decide about all this stuff, but it's not the same vibes and the same energy that she gave originally, right? And let me show you guys, because I did a TikTok about this last night, but I've shown you guys this many times before, but we have this thing that the White House put out some time ago about probably in their first year of their administration, about transgender and affirming people. And it's stuff about pronouns, it's stuff about hormones and surgeries. So her administration knows good and well how they feel about the stuff, because they pushed it. They pushed it hard. They did. And not only that, our assistant health secretary is a trans person. It's a dude who says he's a woman. Babylon B said he got Man of the Year, and they shut his account down. And that's one of the reasons why Elon Musk bought Twitter. True story. And he tried to, so the Biden administration tried to stop WPATH from having age limits listed for trans surgeries. And Rachel Levin, he was saying, oh, well, if we have these age restrictions on there, it's going to draw more attention politically, and it's not right. And we need, and just wanted them gone. And other people on WPATH were like, well, that doesn't seem to make sense. Wouldn't not having age suggestions on there make things more political? Yes, it certainly would if you're a common sense person. But when they just want stuff done for these transgender folks and these very confused kids so they can make them big pharma slaves forever, maybe they don't really want those limits on there when it comes to hormones and when they can chop their genitals off. So that was a big story. The New York Times reported on it. We talked about it at the time when it came out. And very quickly, the White House did respond, because I'm sure they got bad traction on that. But my point is, it's too late to shy away from this issue. Like they said that Trump's trying to define you. She's been defined. She has self-defined it. You can't go on, all these TV shows and participate in all this drag central stuff or, defend books with gay porn in it and just hopefully that's not flagged because I just said that. But that's, just really explicit material and be like, oh, well, I just want everyone to be treated with respect and dignity. The way she started answering these questions, particularly about this issue, it reminded me of like, I don't know, when Christians are asked like, how do you feel about gay people? And they start off like, well, I want everybody to be treated with love and dignity and respect. And then they start going into scripture or something. But the Bible says this, like they're trying to soften the blow a little, like they want you to understand, like you're human and I see you, but this is how things are. So it's just funny that Kamala is distancing herself and it seems so cold and of course calculating because she wants to win. But again, it doesn't even make sense now. You might as well own it. If you go down in flames, it is what it is. People have heard what you said. It's on. You wrote it in forms. There's videos of you saying the stuff. It's just amazing how much video footage I was able to get from my video for Kamala Harris. It is what it is. You're not going to remove that image of how people see you. So you just have to try to define yourself or you explain yourself as best you can. If you can, she's not too good at it. When people try to come at me and say your opinion is radical on X, Y, and Z, and I'm like, no, my opinion isn't radical. It's rational, and here's why I believe what I believe, and I can explain it thoroughly. And you can disagree with it, and many people do, but it's not crazy. It's not really not extreme. You just don't agree with it, fine, but don't just dismiss me like it's just a crazy position. No, it's rational. There's logic behind it. You just don't agree with it. And again, that's fine. It's not really fine, but it is what it is. But, it's hard to defend transgender surgeries for detainees or just trans care. They can't step away from this. They are who they are. They are who they are. Last thing I want to play for you guys. Is this interview about it was on MSNBC. Well, and she just did not it was like Telemundo. Maybe they were just streaming it through MSNBC, but they asked this question about immigration and she just didn't do great.
Right now, we're talking about border security, and there's no Democrat talking about pathway to citizenship.
Before he got to this point, because I also saw this clip first on TikTok too, but he asked the question, has Donald Trump won the conversation on the border? Because if you notice, Donald Trump, he came in hot 2016. That was his position. The border, he was very hard on it. And talking about the drugs and the criminals and all the stuff. I'm going to build a wall. That's an issue that was important to a lot of Republicans, and he staked out his territory, and it was his thing. It was a staple. That's why, Ann Coulter said Trump is going to win, and that she supported him. People thought Ann was crazy, and then of course Trump won. And Trump knew he just felt the pulse of the people, the beat of the people, and he jumped on that issue that was important to people. It's not that hard to win elections when you listen to the people and you give them what they want. and it's really not that hard. So that's what he did, and he's able to get by all those other folks and lead in the polls, and not really necessarily with the majority, but he had the plurality of the vote, and of course the rest is history. But he was able to stop lower border crossing significantly, and of course it quadrupled over the course of the Biden-Harris administration. They just kind of let people in. They got rid of a bunch of stuff that Trump was doing. They stopped deportations. They stopped remain in Mexico. They stopped building the border wall for a long time. I think they resumed a little bit, but now the crossings are down because they decided to do some stuff, but they allowed a flood of people to come in, including criminals who's committed heinous crimes against American citizens. So Kamala Harris she knows is an issue she's getting killed on. So she's had to moderate her position, even though there's a plethora of evidence that she has been anti-wall, that she has been, anti-ICE, all kinds of stuff, but she has to go on TV and go to these rallies and pretend like she's going to do something about the border. And so this reporter pointed out, he asked the question, has Donald Trump won on this issue? Because she has had to move to where Trump is at, or try to get to where Trump is at and moderate her position, because that's where Americans are at. And you can't just win the election on abortion, because your abortion isn't going to keep a criminal alien from coming in and doing heinous things to your daughter, or I don't know, stop a terrorist from coming across the border and committing some kind of crime that kills many people. An abortion isn't going to stop that. So there's just more substantive things to worry about than how she wants to murder babies. So anyway, let's start this clip.
Right now, we're talking about border security, and there's no Democrat talking about pathway to citizenship, and immigration relief, and the benefits that migrants bring to this country.
Oh, but there's no question that migrants bring. America is a country that was built in part by immigrants.
But people are concerned about their TPS, their DACA, we're talking about mass deportations.
I'm not talking about.
What do you stand on mass deportations? What's your stand there?
We need smart, humane immigration policy in America that includes a pathway to citizenship.
Right now, we're talking.
And she says, I think she said something after that about securing the border or whatever. But look, hon, you cannot have amnesty or promise amnesty out the gate and then talk about securing the border, because you're just going to invite more people to come. You cannot incentivize the bad behavior. You cannot incentivize the bad behavior. So all these people have come in, many of them criminal and stuff. I'm not saying most of, well, they're all criminals if they come in illegally, but, and you can say, well, they had asylum claims. Stop it. Many of these people don't have legitimate asylum claims. Stop it. But she's stammering with these questions. So to answer his question, yes, Donald Trump has won this debate. He has been vindicated. I don't know how well you guys remember a couple years ago when he was the president, when people would be crying every day on TV, whining, and those press briefings were so chaotic because people were mad about the people being detained and the separating of the parents from the children, and people like, I don't care what's going on. This is so evil. This is so evil. If it's so evil to separate a parent from their child, then why is the Biden-Harris administration prosecuting pro-life people under the FACE Act and separating a mother from her child and giving her 3.5 years? People separate parents from their children all the time in the United States of America. But here's the thing. The Trump administration, they knew a lot of people were coming in, being trafficked and being carried over by coyotes or whatever. So they had DNA testing on site, rapid DNA testing. And they'd be like, okay, you're not actually related to this person. So there were kids, by the time his final debate with Biden came around, there was a report that came out. I think there was like maybe 300 kids or something who weren't back with their families. And they're like, oh, this is such a disgrace. And Kamala Harris thought that was such a disgrace. And Trump was like, people come over, they don't come with their parents, they come with coyotes. And then we had the hilarious but deeply disturbing reaction from the left of so many people who thought Donald Trump was talking about Wile E. Coyote or actual coyotes, and didn't understand what he meant by that, and were mocking him. The uninformed were mocking him, not understanding that coyotes are people who, who like tote people across the border or whatever. So, I was really disturbed by the state of the country when I saw those tweets, because there was a lot of tweets, and not just randos. Some of them were like elected people. So I was a little scared. I was unnerved when I saw it. I'm like, man, we are in bad shape. And it's okay if you didn't know what a coyote was, but if you were so invested in that particular issue and you didn't know, and you were bold enough to be ignorant and then mock Trump, yeah, I'm concerned. I'm concerned. But now we have like 300,000. No. I don't know if is it 300,000 or is it 200,000 kids? It's in the hundreds of thousands of kids that they don't know where they are. I think it might be 300. Was it 280 something? We don't know where these kids are. We don't know where they are. Because they weren't doing the same things that Trump was doing. Why aren't they testing like how Trump was testing? Why didn't they remain in Mexico? Why are they letting the drug cartels run the borders? Why are they allowing drones to fly overhead and all kinds of nonsense they had going on? Why? But those chickens are coming home to roost because people don't like it and they don't trust her. They don't trust her. They don't think she's going to be able to handle the border. And they're correct. They are correct. So she's in hot water. And you can't just say, my vajayjay, vote for me. Protect your vajayjay rights. You can't. I'm sorry. That's not going to work. It's going to work for some people, unfortunately. But not enough. There's so many things going on. There's so many other important issues going on. There was another thing about Kamala Harris. They were asked about Biden's decline. This one's only a minute. So this clip is just a minute. So let me play this for you guys, and then I'm going to start to wrap it up.
Can you say that you were honest with the American people about what you saw in those moments with President Biden as you were with him again and again, repeatedly in that time?
Of course. Joe Biden is an extremely accomplished, experienced, and capable in every way that anyone would want if they're president.
And you never saw anything like what happened at the debate night behind closed doors with him?
It was a bad debate. People have bad debates. He is absolutely.
But that's the reason why you're here, and he's not running for the top of the ticket.
Well, you'd have to ask him if that's the only reason why.
What do you think?
I am running for president of the United States. I speak with not only sincerity, but with a real firsthand account of watching him do this work. I have no reluctance in saying that. No, of course I don't.
Okay, Kamala. Kamala. That's her name. Okay. Nobody believes that Joe Biden is okay. And this really goes down to a trust issue. People didn't like Hillary Clinton for a couple reasons. Oh, sorry, there's a lot of reasons. And I did do 50 reasons for Hillary Clinton, so you guys can go back and watch and find that one. It's not on Black Tea News. I did it when I worked at the Michigan Republican Party, but you can find it on Facebook. You could probably find it on YouTube too. The YouTube one didn't have a lot of views, but the one on Facebook had almost like 900,000. Did really well. People didn't like Hillary Clinton because they did see her as a figure of the establishment. And a lot of people I know people I know communists who voted for Trump just because they wanted someone to blow up the system. They don't believe in his values. They just liked him as a change agent. And so she was the face of the establishment. People were very tired of, dynasty kind of stuff, I guess, and they didn't want to see one develop or whatever. And they were concerned about her being a warmonger and other kind of things like that. And they thought but the main thing I would say, besides like the change agent stuff, is the fact that people didn't trust her. People didn't trust her. And I think even though you can see interviews with people talking about Trump and they'll say, yeah, I know he's a liar, but I still think he's a kind of a straight shooter. And it's like, how do those two things like correlate or exist at the same time, rather? And it's because, he may say some things that don't line up all the time, but as far as like how he presents himself, who he is, how he carries himself, how he feels about himself or whatever, many things what you see is what you get. You feel like a real vibe from him. He did the McDonald's thing. People hated it because he just came off as really real authentic. The people, his supporters in the drive-through, his interactions with them, it just seemed like it was real, like it was genuine. I saw I think it was CNN talking about it, and one of them was like, it's just kind of jarring seeing him do this stuff, because they just didn't have that image of Trump being able to just kind of relate down and do that. Now I'm like, that must be some derangement, because if you've been watching Trump for years, you know that he'll do like normal stuff, or he doesn't mind poking fun at him, like different skits he's done on SNL, that weird thing he did with Rudy Giuliani when they were in drag, like different stuff like all the time that you'd see throughout the years of pop culture. Like Donald Trump can take a joke, and he's like he's a rich guy, but he doesn't feel like, and he's not ashamed of it. He loves his money and he loves his image and stuff, but he relates to normal people. And it's like he likes normal people, and then he'll do sweet, nice things for different charities and normal people, and he doesn't need the credit, doesn't need to take the credit. He just does it. He just does it. So people feel a realness from him, even though they don't feel that he's always honest, but they feel like they know him. People don't know this woman. And she's lied about the condition of Joe Biden. She can say that he's fine and can do the job. Him doing bad at the debate, it's not that he'd had a bad debate because of the quality of his answers, though the one on abortion, how he just kind of circled that back to like illegals raping people was the worst answer ever. He had some bad answers, but if you read some stuff on a transcript, it wasn't as bad as like people were flipping out on, but it was the optics, it was his energy, it was his voice, it was the gaping open mouth, it was his presence. People just could see that he wasn't up to the job, and that perception is why he started taking in the polls. It wasn't just that it was a bad debate, it was that people got a peek behind the veil, and people could see it, but the press was, lying about it. But they couldn't hide behind anything at that point. They couldn't hide behind anything at that point. So she's seen him. She knows. And I think most people know that they pushed that old man out, and probably suspect, the rumor to be true, that Obama probably told Joe, like, we have Kamala, she's going to enact the 25th Amendment if you don't step down. And that's probably what happened. That's probably what happened. I don't know. That's a rumor. But it sounds true. It feels true. We don't know. We don't know. But this old man was determined to do it up until that second it posted on his resignation thing posted on X, which was so strange. So strange. Anyway, there is a story that I wanted to get to, but I'm gonna have to table that till tomorrow, which is fine. But the Democrats did a hit piece on Trump, claiming that there was a soldier who he wanted to pay for the funeral, and they're saying in the Atlantic, and the Atlantic is the one that ran the losers and suckers story. They have like anonymous sources and don't really name names, but they claim that Trump said it doesn't cost all this money to bury a Mexican, and it was trying not to pay for it. And Mark Meadows was like, that did not happen, and he told them it didn't happen. And then they included his quote, and they're like, well, he says he didn't hear it, which is not the same thing. And so the family said, what are you doing? Trump was very kind to us. So people actually involved in the story said it didn't happen, but I don't expect any kind of update or change, because they never updated or changed stuff about the losers and sucker story either. The original article and its original premise that has been debunked still is up and exists. And we'll have to get more into it tomorrow, but it's a disgusting piece. And at the end of the day, I don't think it's going to move the needle, but I'm sure that's what will kind of be their closing argument as they try to talk about how bad Trump is. Kamala's joy is kind of gone. Not kind of gone, but her focus is now just rah, 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 Trump bad, Trump bad, Trump bad. And again, it doesn't matter how bad you think he is. Kamala Harris and Joe Biden are worse. And if the Democrats wanted to run someone that was kind of maybe normal, I'm not saying Republicans maybe would have crossed over to vote for someone, let's say Joe Manchin, for example, if that was their nominee or something, maybe he'd have a lot of crossover, but there'd probably be a lot more Republicans that would tell themselves that it's okay to stay home. And there's still going to be a lot of Republicans who tell themselves that it's okay to stay home. But she's so much worse, and it's bad. I thank you guys for joining me today. I saw someone said that they liked my rants. I'm glad to be candid with you guys on some of my feelings, and if there's a fence sitter, hopefully some of that conversation helps you kind of deal with your kind of thought process or whatever. But I don't want to reward this bad behavior. I don't technically want to reward behavior that I don't really like from Trump either, like with some of the positions that he's had, but hopefully we can make a difference. Like what are you talking to? Oh, you're talking to somebody else in the comments. That wasn't to me. But anyway, yeah, Kamala Harris is worse. I'm sorry, I got distracted for a second. Anyway, thank you guys. Go to blackteennews.com, check out different content, my website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation on the website because there's cost to stream and run my site, all that good stuff. So you guys can support. I appreciate it. You guys can check out different merch that's available at the store. Like I mentioned the 4th of July speech. This quote about the Constitution being a glorious liberty document is also in that speech, but it's a cool Frederick Douglass shirt. I got other stuff you guys can see and get off the store. I see you guys are getting this pumpkin spice mug. I've seen you guys buy that on the store on the website, so you guys can go get more if you like it. And there's also a t-shirt too. I've seen people get the t-shirt, but please check out some of my books. I got some of my posters behind me. I've got 18 altogether, and I'm looking forward to my book festival thing on the 3rd. That's a Sunday morning. My signing is from 10 to 12 in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And then that weekend, I will be at Motor City Comic Con in Novi. So hopefully I'll see some of you guys there. God bless you guys, and I'll see you later.